Finnish authorities may pardon Simon Ekpa on the fourth charge, which is a minor tax evasion case. He admitted guilt for a small infraction, and the court sees it as secondary, not a major part of the overall case, which centers on terrorism and incitement allegations. Simon Ekpa recently rejected stringent bail conditions set by the Finnish Pame District Court. He chose to remain in detention rather than agree to terms he called unacceptable. Simon Ekpa is expected to be sentenced by the Pame District Court before or on July 29, 2025. 3 Finnish judges will preside and deliver a unanimous verdict on the charges against him. Finnish Minister of Justice, Leena Meri, plans to change existing laws so suspects of serious crimes can be held without bail before trial. This appears to be a response to Simon Ekpa's case. Dr. David Matsanga and other human rights activists have condemned Finland's treatment of Simon Ekpa, calling it a violation of democratic values and accusing them of arresting without proper evidence. Former Finnish ambassador to Nigeria, Leena Pelvinian, stated that Simon Ekpa's case is unique due to his dual citizenship and called it a diplomatic irritant. She emphasized that Finland opposes incitement and violence but respects due legal process. Meanwhile, Peter Obi, the ex-presidential candidate in Nigeria last election, has called Nnamdi Kanu's prolonged detention unjustified, triggering backlash from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the presidency. The indigenous people of Biafra, ipob, supported Peter Obi's stance. The United States Embassy in Nigeria now requires all student and exchange visa applicants to make their social media accounts public for background checks, raising concerns about privacy and rejections. A man from Abia State by the name Ubona was released from prison after spending 26 years for unknowingly buying a stolen generator. His release came after comedian Sikh King raised awareness about his wrongful imprisonment. Governor Charles Chukwuma Soludo of Anambra State claimed that most kidnappings and killings in the southeast were committed by Igbo criminals, not Fulani herdsmen, triggering backlash from his constituents and diaspora communities. On the 9th day of July in the year 2025, a very important piece of news broke out from the quiet yet deeply watched corners of Finland's legal system. It was news that traveled quickly, not just across Europe, but into the streets of Nigeria, through the communities of Biafran supporters, across social media platforms, and into diplomatic corridors from Abuja to Washington, D.C. The announcement came quietly, but carried a deep impact. The government of Finland, through its legal institutions and political undercurrents, was now considering pardoning Simon Njoku Ekpa on the fourth charge leveled against him, which happens to be a minor tax evasion case. To understand why this news hit with such a heavy echo, we need to revisit who Simon Njoku Ekpa is, why he was arrested in Finland, and what this fourth charge means in the broader, more controversial case that surrounds him. Simon Njoku Ekpa is not just any man. He is a dual citizen of Nigeria and Finland, a trained lawyer, a former athlete, and a controversial political activist who has led a vocal campaign for the independence of the southeastern region of Nigeria under the banner of Biafra. His rise to international attention came not just through his online activities, but through the loud and often divisive broadcasts where he repeatedly called for civil disobedience in Nigeria, particularly in the Igbo-speaking states of the southeast. For many Biafran loyalists, Simon Njoku Ekpa is a modern-day freedom fighter. For others, especially within the Nigerian government and security apparatus, He is seen as a dangerous agitator whose actions have allegedly led to violence, killings, and economic disruption in parts of Nigeria. In Finland, where Simon Ekpa resides, the picture is even more complex. The Finnish government has tried to balance its democratic values of free speech and human rights with its legal obligations to international law and peace. That is the background. Now let us return to the heart of the matter, the fourth charge and the possibility of pardon. This fourth charge against Simon Ekpa is not related to the more severe accusations of terrorism and incitement to violence. Rather, it deals with a smaller issue, a case of minor tax evasion. According to court records and statements by Finnish legal officers, Simon Ekpa failed to properly declare or remit a minor amount of income on his tax returns over a previous fiscal year. When questioned by Finnish tax authorities and later the police, Simon Ekpa reportedly admitted to the mistake. He did not deny the charge. In fact, he accepted that he had made an error, one that he claimed was not intentional but due to a misunderstanding of Finland's dual income reporting system. Because he confessed and cooperated, the charge did not escalate into a serious fraud allegation. Despite the seriousness of the larger case that looms over him, which includes charges of public incitement to terrorism, aggravated hate speech, and disruption of public order, the court has separated this minor tax offense from the major charges. And now, Finnish legal analysts are saying that there is a growing likelihood that the Finnish government may recommend a formal pardon for Simon Ekpa on this fourth charge. While it does not mean he is entirely free, it could signal a shift in the legal and political tone of the case. The move toward possible pardon is not happening in a vacuum. It is coming after months of legal drama, international criticism, human rights debates, and political tension both in Finland and in Nigeria. One key part of this puzzle is Simon Ekpa's recent decision to reject the strict bail conditions offered by the Finnish Pame District Court. The court had proposed several terms, including restrictions on his internet usage, limitations on his movement within Finland, and a ban on political communications related to Biafra. Simon Ekpa rejected those conditions flatly. He stated that he would rather remain in detention than accept what he described as oppressive, humiliating, and anti-democratic restrictions. This act of defiance drew both admiration and criticism. Many of his supporters praised him as a man of principle, someone willing to give up personal freedom rather than compromise his voice or cause. But legal experts in Finland saw it differently. Some believed he was being unrealistic. Others felt that by rejecting the bail, he had given up a chance to fight his case from outside prison walls, where he could have worked with his lawyers more easily and prepared better for his final defense. As it stands, Simon Ekpa remains in detention in a Finnish holding facility. He is not in a maximum security prison, but his movement and communication are heavily restricted. The court has made it clear that his final judgment will be delivered by or on the 29th day of July 2025. 3 respected judges of the Finnish legal system will preside over that ruling. They are expected to give a unanimous verdict, which means all 3 must agree on the outcome, whether it be acquittal, conviction, or something in between. In the background of this legal theatre is a powerful political wave that is shaking Finland's own laws. The current Minister of Justice in Finland, whose name is Leena Meri, has stated publicly that there is an urgent need to change the laws regarding pre-trial detention. According to Leena Meri, suspects of serious crimes, including terrorism and incitement, should be allowed to be detained indefinitely without the option of bail, especially if their case poses a potential threat to national or international peace. Many political observers believe this proposed change is directly influenced by the Simon Nyoku Ekpa case. Critics argue that changing national laws in reaction to one man's trial risks undermining the fairness and neutrality of Finland's justice system. Still, supporters of the move say that Finland must adapt to new realities, including cross-border digital activism and international political agitation. The legal debate has triggered reactions from various corners of the world. One of the most vocal critics of Simon Nyoku Ekpa's arrest and prosecution has been Dr. David Matsanga, a human rights activist and political analyst known across Africa. Dr. David Matsanga condemned the Finnish authorities, saying they acted without sufficient evidence and violated basic principles of justice by arresting Simon Nyoku Ekpa in the manner they did. According to him, democratic nations like Finland should not allow political pressure to override the presumption of innocence. He warned that if Finland continues down this path, it risks staining its image as a protector of human rights. Meanwhile, another key voice entered the debate: the former Finnish ambassador to Nigeria, Leena Pelvenian. Speaking in a televised interview, Leena Pelvenian described the case of Simon Nyoku Ekpa as unique. She said the issue is not simply legal, but diplomatic as well, due to Simon Nyoku Ekpa's dual citizenship. Leena Pelvenian acknowledged that while Finland opposes any form of violence or incitement, it must also uphold the integrity of its legal processes. She warned against politicizing the judiciary and emphasized the importance of balancing legal enforcement with diplomatic sensitivity. The case has also stirred strong emotions within Nigeria. A recent development came from Peter Gregory Obi, the former presidential candidate of Nigeria in the most recent general election. Peter Gregory Obi made a public statement describing the prolonged detention of Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, as unjustified. This statement sent shockwaves through Nigeria's political landscape. Within hours, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and members of the Nigerian presidency issued a rebuttal. They accused Peter Gregory Obi of undermining national unity and supporting what they called secessionist elements. Despite the backlash, Peter Gregory Obi's comment was warmly received by members of the indigenous people of Biafra, who issued a statement thanking him for his courage and truthfulness. In another part of the world, the United States of America has made a move that some people see as connected to rising global concerns about security and online radicalism. The United States Embassy in Nigeria announced that all student and exchange visa applicants are now required to make their social media accounts public for scrutiny. This new policy, according to embassy officials, is meant to help identify applicants with suspicious affiliations or violent ideological leanings. However, privacy advocates and student groups have raised concerns that this policy may lead to unjust visa denials, online profiling, and violations of freedom of expression. Amid these international stories, one deeply human and heartbreaking story emerged from within Nigeria itself. A man from Abia State named Ubona was finally released from prison after spending 26 years in detention. His only crime was unknowingly purchasing a generator that had been reported stolen. For more than 2 decades, Ubona sat in prison, forgotten by the legal system. His story came to light when a Nigerian comedian known as Sikh King used his online platform to raise awareness about the injustice. Thanks to public pressure and legal advocacy, the courts reviewed the case and set Ubona free. His release sparked both joy and outrage. Joy that he was finally free, and outrage that such a miscarriage of justice could happen in the first place. The emotional temperature rose further in the southeastern state of Anambra when its governor, Charles Chukwuma Soludo, made a controversial statement. Speaking at a public safety meeting, Governor Charles Chukwuma Soludo claimed that the majority of kidnappings and killings in the southeast were not being carried out by Fulani herdsmen, as popularly believed, but by Igbo criminals. His statement angered many of his constituents and members of the Nigerian diaspora abroad. They accused the governor of shifting blame and ignoring the broader issues of insecurity and political violence affecting the region. Some even called for his resignation, while others defended his position as a brave attempt to speak the hard truth. Back in Finland, the legal process continues with great tension. Simon Njoku Ekpa's defense team is preparing to argue that his actions do not meet the legal definition of terrorism or incitement to violence under Finnish or European Union laws. They plan to highlight his peaceful advocacy, his online speeches, and his emphasis on civil disobedience rather than armed rebellion. On the other hand, Finnish prosecutors are determined to prove that his broadcasts inspired violence in Nigeria and that he must be held accountable. Whether or not Simon Njoku Ekpa receives a pardon on this fourth charge may not change the trajectory of the larger case, but it might be a signal that Finnish authorities are willing to show some level of flexibility and balance in handling a highly sensitive international case. A pardon on the tax charge might also open the door for future discussions on bail, conditional release, or diplomatic resolution, though none of that is guaranteed. As the 29th of July draws closer, the world watches and waits. Will the court deliver a harsh sentence or find grounds for leniency? Will the government of Finland, through its legal and political channels, demonstrate a sense of justice that balances law with humanity? Will the voices of human rights defenders like Dr. David Matsanga and the criticisms from Peter Gregory Obi influence international opinion? Will the broader story of Biafra and the tension between Nigeria's unity and its calls for restructuring find a fair hearing in foreign courts? No one knows for sure. What is clear, however, is that the case of Simon Njoku Ekpa is no longer just about one man. It is now about freedom and law, about speech and power, about justice and its delay. It is about the way the world handles voices it does not agree with. And most of all, it is about how far governments will go when faced with uncomfortable truths and unwanted disruptions. The coming days will determine not just the fate of Simon Njoku Ekpa, but also the integrity of the institutions that hold his future in their hands. Whether in Helsinki or Abuja, in Anambra or Washington, people will be watching not just what is said, but what is done. Because in moments like these, justice is not just delivered in courtrooms, it is also judged in the hearts of those who believe in it. As the news of the possible pardon of Simon Njoku Ekpa on the fourth charge spread, the reaction was anything but quiet. The public discourse in both Finland and Nigeria took a new shape, filled with fierce debate, emotional outbursts, and long overdue questions about justice, fairness, and state responsibility. Many Biafran supporters, particularly those in the diaspora, saw the news as a symbolic gesture of softening attitudes in Finland. They believed that the possible pardon on the minor tax charge was not just about unpaid money. It was a crack in the wall, a sign that Finland was perhaps beginning to distance itself from the aggressive accusations of terrorism and hate speech, which they claim were built on shaky evidence and political pressure. For those in Nigeria who have supported the indigenous people of Biafra, and who follow every detail of Simon Nyoku Ekpa's court appearances like a sacred ritual, this was a moment of cautious hope. In the southeastern states of Nigeria, such as Imo, Abia, Enugu, Ebonyi, and Anambra, Biafran flags quietly reappeared in markets, streets, and homes. The news was circulated on WhatsApp groups, Facebook pages, and community radio stations. It was not celebrated with drums or songs, at least not yet, but it was discussed in hushed but hopeful tones. For many, it meant one thing. Perhaps the Finnish government had begun to see that Simon Nyoku Ekpa was not a terrorist, but a political figure caught in a complex web of international misunderstanding. Inside Finland itself, however, the reaction was more cautious. Many legal experts stressed that a pardon on one charge does not erase the severity of the other accusations. The core of Simon Nyoku Ekpa's legal troubles lies in the allegation that his broadcasts, transmitted mostly on YouTube, Facebook, and other digital platforms, directly incited violence in Nigeria. Finnish investigators presented clips in court where Simon Nyoku Ekpa was seen issuing orders for sit-at-home protests, declaring no election days, and warning Nigerian politicians and security forces to stay away from the southeast. These clips, according to Finnish prosecutors, contributed to unrest, attacks, and the deaths of civilians in Nigeria. Whether or not this is true will be decided by the three-judge panel. But what cannot be denied is the influence Simon Nyoku Ekpa commands. Even behind bars in Finland, his weekly audio messages and written statements continue to reach tens of thousands of people, particularly in Biafran communities worldwide. His loyal followers describe him as fearless, honest, and disciplined. They argue that he has never once called for violence directly, and that his words are twisted by those with a political agenda. On the other hand, critics, especially in Nigeria's political circles, accuse him of being a coward who sits in safety in Europe, while young people in Nigeria are misled into actions that get them arrested or killed. One of the loudest criticisms came from an unexpected direction. A group of retired Nigerian generals, through an anonymous open letter leaked to the press, warned the international community not to romanticize the actions of individuals who use democracy as a cover to destabilize sovereign nations. Though they did not mention Simon Nyoku Ekpa by name, the timing and language of the letter made it clear who they were referring to. They urged the Finnish government to avoid granting leniency that could embolden similar behavior in other parts of the world. For these retired generals, national unity, even if imperfect, is more important than digital crusades fueled by exile activists. But as Finland weighed its next moves, it was also under growing diplomatic pressure from civil rights organizations and international observers. Amnesty International. Finland released a short but pointed statement urging the Finnish legal system to ensure fairness, neutrality, and transparency in Simon Nyoku Ekpa's trial. The organization did not take sides on guilt or innocence, but it reminded the authorities that every accused person, no matter how controversial, deserves fair treatment under the law. Human Rights Watch echoed the same sentiment, asking for more openness about the evidence being used and questioning whether Simon Nyoku Ekpa's political views had unduly influenced his legal predicament. The Nigerian government, on the other hand, remained firm and largely silent about the unfolding developments in Finland. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs declined multiple requests for comment. However, a senior aide to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was quoted anonymously in a news report saying that Nigeria expected Finland to do the right thing. What the right thing means depends on who you ask. For the Nigerian presidency, it likely means a conviction. For Simon Njoku Ekpa's supporters, it means complete exoneration. The courtroom dynamics in the Pame District Court of Finland have also become more intense in recent weeks. The three-judge panel, made up of Judge Rasmus Koivisto, Judge Elina Vainikainen, and Judge Tommy Rautio, have held multiple closed-door sessions to deliberate on the key evidence. According to a leak published by a Finnish journalist from Helsingin Sanomat newspaper, there is some disagreement among the judges about how to categorize Simon Njoku Ekpa's actions under Finnish law. While all agree that some of his speeches were provocative, one of the judges reportedly questioned whether provocation automatically equals criminal incitement, especially when it involves political opinion from abroad. The judges are said to be taking their time to make sure the final verdict will be watertight, both legally and ethically. In preparation for the final judgment scheduled for or before the 29th of July, Simon Njoku Ekpa's legal team has expanded. Several new defense lawyers with expertise in human rights law have joined his case, including a renowned international legal scholar from Sweden named Ingrid Alsson. Ingrid Alsson told Finnish media that the charges against Simon Njoku Ekpa are worrying because they could set a precedent where any person who criticizes a foreign government from European soil could be arrested and prosecuted if that government complains loudly enough. This is the end of our news update. Please click the icon on the top right corner of your screen to watch my next video. You will enjoy it. I will see you again in my next update. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye for now.